Okay, I think they joined now. I'll see you, but they see the presentation.
How do I show it?
It's already on share screen.
It's on share screen, so I can't like,
That means that they're looking, that's what they see.
right, that's what I got. But then if you want them to talk, like,
You can just write it in the chat. Jen mentioned that.
Hello, everyone.
And
So, like I was telling you, we're gonna go through a brief overview, general on the title process. And then we're gonna go over some issues that we see reoccurring during a transaction. And then you guys can ask me whatever title questions you have. It was very informal. If you want to stop me during, go ahead. So what is,
You have to wait, bro.
Janelle, I can hear you. I have my team here.
mute. You
Guys,
guys have to mute yourselves.
so they can jump in and answer any questions you might have. So what is title insurance?
I don't know how to do this.
Protect you for any past risks. So if the prior seller had a lien that didn't show up on title, or something on the survey was done incorrectly and there are encroachments, your property will be protected. If an heir from a prior seller comes and says that the property belongs to them and you have to give up your house, it'll cover you for the value of the property. Now, this is something you pay for one time. It's not like regular insurance where you continue paying monthly. And there's two policies, an owner policy and a lender policy, depending on the type of transaction. The policy will live with the property so long as nothing changes on how title is taken. So if you quit claim and remove somebody from title, the policy will become void. So it's very important that you tell your clients, if they purchase title insurance and then they quit claim a month or a year after, the policy is no longer going to be
we're
valid.
famous when they want to change the name of- if it's Javier Zelaya as the owner and I want to click in the Michael Alcantara onto the property, so it's Javier Zelaya and Michael Alcantara. You change the ownership, right? That change in ownership voids the title insurance.
Now, that specific example he just gave is okay, because we're adding someone new in. So long as all of the owners that were originally on title stay on title, we're okay. If it would be Javier and Mike, and then they're removing Mike and putting the other Mike, that policy will then become void.
If you change it to a business,
If you change it into an LLC or trust,
it voids.
it does void. You can repurchase it at a discounted reissue rate. So if your client is worried about having title issues, you can always do that. Now, it's very important to have title insurance. If you've owned the property for 20 years and you haven't had a title issue and you need to quit claim for some reason, at that point, I would say it's probably okay to take the risk because nothing has happened in 20 years. But we've seen title issues come up after 5 years, so it's important to advise your clients. Now, go ahead.
So if I bought it with Angelo Lamas as an individual and then I transferred to my company, Lamas Loans, LLC, whatever,
void,
then it's a void. Even though it's still mine and I'm 100% owner, the
Correct.
policy is void.
correct.
But if he buys it and then he wants to add his daughter Selena,
As an heir, it will
or like
remain.
he wants to add his wife.
Well, his wife would already be on there by default. But no, if we're adding and all the original owners are on title, it will remain active.
You said that the two type of policies, the owners and the loan policy, do they get issued at the same time as closing?
Yes, depends if there's a loan. So
Right.
as I was saying, a cash deal does not require title insurance. So if somebody's buying a property cash, they can opt out of it. It's just highly not recommended that they do so because you never know what's gonna happen. You know, they could potentially lose their entire property.
I jokingly tell her all the time, let me know who doesn't buy with title insurance, then I'm gonna go save property's money.
Angela was giving me an example of somebody who had purchased a property and the legal description was for the property next door. And that technically they purchased the property or something like that. That would be a title issue at some, you know, if they can't resolve it, that title policy would.
Very close to putting us on the blacklist of title companies.
Okay.
I can,
If I do that, then it's.
can you mute yourself, Janelle?
You said that it can be rebought at a discount, how much is the discount?
So it depends on the value of the original policy. It's the same as if you were refinancing and you have a prior policy, you can get reissue credit on that. So it's depending on the value.
Is it like based on a percentage?
Yeah, there's a discount. It's like a millage amount per dollar. Any other questions?
Yeah, is it for the lifetime of the loan?
Yeah, so title insurance on the loan will be all the way up until the loan is paid off. And title insurance on the owner's policy is so long as title remains
As
how
long as
it
you
was
own it
taken.
for as long as you own it for the rest of your life,
Then it'll,
Okay.
Yeah.
you sell it in 10 years.
so there are two policies. One of them goes to the lender and one of them goes to you as an individual. And you have to pay a certain amount for both. Okay. So we're gonna go into the flow of the real estate transaction. Okay, obviously you get a new contract. You guys negotiated a deal. The contract gets sent over to title. And the first thing we do is we introduce ourselves. Our processors will reach out to your clients, to the listing agent, to the sellers, and tell them who we are. We'll send out wire instructions for the escrow deposit. We'll issue the escrow letter. Something I've been seeing a lot lately is people are submitting their escrow deposits via ACH transfer. And then it's taking 4 or 5 days for the money to hit our account, if it even does, because sometimes it gets
My
returned.
transaction, the escrow never hit the account. The file that I just closed on, it never hit the account. So
Now, we
should-
had confirmation
clients,
that it was
yeah.
sent at some point, but it never got to us because you have to be very specific with your buyers. It has to be a wire. It cannot be just a transfer like from one account to another. It's for some reason, it's different and it does not
Tell
get
them
to
it doesn't
us.
cost them $35 and you do the right one.
Exactly.
It has to
Yeah.
cost them
You
$35.
guys have to guide your clients, you know, maybe some of your clients have never even done a wire. Help them out, make sure, follow up with them, see if they did the escrow deposit. Don't just assume that they know what they're doing. Some people don't know what they're doing. So
A lot of
help them
times
out.
online wire transfers are difficult to do and they're only allotted a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
So depending on the amount of your escrow deposit is how much they could do it online. Cash to, we could take a money order or check for escrow deposit as well, so long as the closing date is far out, so it'll give it a
Clear,
chance to
yeah.
clear our account. Cash to close is not allowed in check, only wires. So once you're ready to close and they have money that they need to compensate for the deal, it must be done in a wire. Okay, so once we have the escrow done, we'll begin the abstracting process. We send over the order for title search, for lien search, for estoppels, and once all of that gets back to us, we'll be able to decide what needs to get done in the transaction to make title clear. In the title search, there could be liens, there could be documents that we need to get from the clients, like death certificates, divorce decrees, things that will prove that the property is owned by the people who are signing at the transaction. We may need to prepare a quick claim deed. Sometimes we have to take somebody out of title because they're not gonna, they're not gonna sign or something. So there's a process that we need to do to get to the closing table. We go ahead, we prepare for closing. Now, this is a process where a lot of the time things get heated or worked up. So if there's a loan on the transaction, you have a closing date of Friday and the lender's not ready yet. We can't do anything until we get clear to close from the lending side. So we'll get a CD to balance, and potentially it could be the same day of closing. It depends on how quickly the loans are cleared, how quickly the closing date approaches. But you have to explain to your clients. Something very important is creating expectations for your clients. You know, if you tell them, this is the closing date on the contract, we're gonna close by this date, that you have to be able to tell them, considering that the lender is gonna be ready, considering that every search, the title search, the lien search, the estoppels, the approvals, everything has come back by the closing date. Because a lot of times the buyers are like, I needed to close on this date, this was the date of closing, why aren't we ready? Well, there's a lot of factors in play.
They could have taken their sweet ass time with the lender sending them information, and that's their fault. So that they take their time, they want everybody else to rush. It doesn't work that way. So you have to explain it to them. If they want things to go quickly, they need to also act quickly. It also depends on the bank you use.
Yeah.
You're using, Wells Fargo or Bank of America or,
They don't care
they don't care. They'll take as long
about
as they
how
want.
many times we write an email
They'll
to them
close-
asking
they'll close
them to
90
close.
days. They don't care. You could be out of contract and then, okay, we got the clear close finally. They don't care if you lose your deposit.
It's
They
too,
don't care
they're
about
too
funds.
big. That's why you should use Andrew. So our processor Janelle, during this time is when she's in communication with all the parties. You know, she's asking for these documents. We use Qualia. Qualia also sends out notifications to your clients and to yourselves. If you want to get paid, if there's processing fees, if there's things that we need to know about your commissions, you should be logging into Qualia and entering in that information. Your buyers and your sellers, if they don't go in and tell us that they're married, then at the day of closing, we find out and all of the documents are incorrect. So it's important that they log in. It's so quick. It's like a 2-minute process. They answer all of these questions and it just gets us to the closing table sooner. In there, they're putting how they want their funds to be sent. They're putting if there's an association. You know, another thing that delays us is the HOAs. We have no control over how long they take to send back the estoppels. Just as the same as your HOA approvals. Super important that you get your buyers to apply right away. So once we're clear to close and we get the lenders clear to close, we have everything that we need, we get a CD from the lender. Those figures from the lender are balanced with our figures. So we communicate back and forth until we come up with one final cash to close number. Once we get that, we'll get a package from the lender with all the closing documents that we need to sign for closing, and we'll reach out to your buyers and the sellers and we'll schedule closing. A lot of times you guys are scheduling closings on your own. It's really hard to meet your clients' expectations if you're telling them we're gonna close at 9 a.m. on Wednesday and we don't have a package. Then they show up to closing, they're waiting for an hour. So normally we tell them tentatively, we've penciled you in. We know you want to close early on Wednesday. We're going to do everything that we can to get it done. But we will confirm once we're ready to go. And we really want to close out all the deals quickly. So trust me. Now don't schedule your closings on Fridays. Mondays are okay for me. I mean, just not Monday
It's usually
morning.
the banks are usually the issue.
Yeah, I don't mind Mondays. And we close, I'll close your clients at midnight. Or anytime that they're ready to close or they need to adjust the times, we have somebody that will go out and sign them if it's after hours. It's not an issue. And I will close them on Fridays as well. I don't mind. The issue is their expectations. If you have a Friday closing and it's at 3 p.m., most probably it's not gonna fund on Friday. And then they want keys, they wanna move in on the weekend, they have a moving truck, and then they're upset. So normally I suggest Tuesdays through Thursdays are the best day to schedule your
You know whose
closings.
fault that is if that happens? The realtor's fault. Because we set the wrong expectation as a realtor. We told them, no, we're gonna close this day, you're gonna fund this day, you should have told them. You should have told them, listen, closing's gonna happen that day, it might not fund, so don't get anything. And if it funds, then you can still go get your U-Haul truck Saturday morning or Friday night if you have to.
Okay.
Now,
There's
I
no
will,
guarantees. There's no guarantees, especially Friday fundings, there's no guarantees, that's like the worst possible day you could choose as a realtor for a closing. If you have to do an extension, if you have a closing for a Tuesday and you need a 3-day extension and it rolls over to a Friday, just say, fuck it, we need an extension to Monday or Tuesday. And then, if the real, on the other side of the realtor asks you, oh, well, we can do it in 3 days, I need 5, I don't close on Fridays. That's it, I don't do closings on Fridays because it's important, because then you set the wrong expectation for your client. And your client thinks they're gonna get the keys, they think they're gonna get all this stuff. They don't end up getting it and they get upset, they're calling you 1,000 times. Javi, you fucking suck, you told me this, and that's not the truth. Just that, you need to manage people's expectations. Make it seem like it's the hardest thing on the face of this planet. And then when it's not, you tell them, well, it's because I made it easier.
I came through for you, yeah.
It's because I made it easier. It usually is harder, but because of me, it's easier.
and now our office won't leave without preparing everything for funding and getting everything ready and initiating wires. That doesn't mean it's gonna get to your client's account. So sometimes it's, Thursday at 6 and we closed, we prepare everything. The next morning is when they're gonna get, because there's wire cutoffs,
I
so,
learned that the hard way.
yeah.
I remember I had that double closing on
Uh-huh.
Friday.
That's
Yeah,
one
it
of,
didn't-
that's,
It didn't get funded till the next
that's
day.
another
Saturday.
one of the items later on that I wanted to discuss. Double closings are double-edged swords. I know that a lot of times they want to sell and they need their money to buy, but you schedule the sale ahead of time, potentially get that deal to agree to a few extended days of post occupancy so that you're able to purchase the next one. Or have them prepared to live in a family member's house for a couple of days or have them arranged, because it usually never works out how you want it to.
Yeah, just give yourself a buffer, like a 3-day window. If you close on a Thursday, say, okay, we won't close on the property. And the buyer could have the funds, right? The seller could have their funds ready to buy. But it's better to just say, you know what? I'm gonna set the closing for the next property on a Monday or a Tuesday. Just because.
Yeah, I'll never do that.
Or
What happens,
potentially, if
I'll
they
never
do,
do that again.
if they don't need the money from the sale, I suggest they purchase first and then they sell.
I don't think that most realtors realize like the importance of our job and how important it is that, we're literally in the process of moving money, right? We're literally part of the economy. We're the biggest drivers in the economy. We're moving millions of dollars a year, right? Worth of money, worth of real estate. People don't think about it. They're like, oh, let's just get it done. Let's move on. And it's like, no, this is a difficult process. It's not simple. And, us as individuals as well, we're literally driving the economy in South Florida. Every time there's a sale, right? Someone might have an extra $50,000 that they might go buy something else with, might just create another job somewhere else. You guys got to think about yourselves on that scale, because that's literally what you are. You're not just this person selling houses and getting a fat commission check and taking off for 2 months and saying, all right, guys, I got 20 G's. I'll see you guys in 2 months. I'm going on vacation or whatever. Although that's part of it, that's not really who we are. We're literally moving the economy.
I've actually had triple closings. The buyer was buying the seller's house, was buying another seller's house.
God, that's great. That's
I
great.
mean, we will do it. Just make sure that they know the things that can happen.
I was representing the end buyer, so we closed that day.
Yeah.
We closed at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. What are the other 2 parties gonna do?
Exactly,
Right.
I did my job.
exactly. So it's just things that can potentially blow up and cause you stress that you want to minimize. Also, if there's issues with anything and you get an email from title or from lending, reach out to somebody in your title company's office, in your lender's office, before you go and freak the clients out.
Please, if there's an addendum, always send it to the lender.
Yeah.
Every single addendum, because there's a credit that that was never sent to me, and it's like, we gotta clear the close, final CD.
Then you need to send it back
And
to
like, hey, where's this credit? Like,
underwriting.
I've never received it,
Exactly.
and that's the,
Yeah, make it part of your routine in the transaction where once a week you check in with all the parties involved. You check in with the lender, you check in with the title company, make it a Tuesday or Wednesday, not Monday, because Monday morning it's like, that's the day everybody wants to work for some reason. And it's like, there's 1,000 things going on. It's like, you're just adding another. And especially not something that it might not be that important, do it on Tuesday. Hey, Magda, is everything okay with my client, for this transaction? Hey, Angelo, is everything really smoothly? Do you need me to do anything? You guys need my help? No? All right, good. So that way, if something does come up and they didn't reach out to you, then it's on them, right? You took it off yourself because you tried. You made the effort to.
And the
figure out
processors,
problems.
at least at Sun Life, Janelle's constantly sending update emails like, lien search just came in, is clear, or lien search just came in, please do this, this, and this. Now, it's important if you're representing your sellers and there's issues on title or on the lien search, that you take ownership of it and try and fix it. Open permits, something that always gets to the last minute. Most of the time, it's a simple phone call to the county to close it out. An expired permit is an open permit. Okay, just because it says expired doesn't mean it can be left there. It needs to be closed out. Anything that comes up that on title, it's usually a quick fix unless it's a really bad deal. But most of the time, it's a phone call or two, and you can help your clients fix it before they start freaking out about it closer to closing.
And even then, this is a lot of stuff to remember. The day that you come across that, because you're gonna come across that. If you're unsure, right, you just call and ask, hey, what does it mean that there's an expired? Okay, what can I do to help? That's it. And then that's all. Have your client call the county, right? Or you can call yourself. That's it. Our job is to solve problems.
We had a specific deal. Remind me, Javi, about that you did the research.
Oh, so it was actually one of Ray's transactions. So there was something wasn't showing up. They had built an extension in the back, a porch,
Like
right?
an awning
An
and
awning and all this stuff, and then it showed that there was an open permit. But when you look at the records, that house was built with the awning, right? The lady pulled a permit to redo the screen. The screen on a porch. She pulled a permit.
and
for
she
that.
never did it.
You don't need a permit for that. But she pulled a permit as though she was redoing her porch. And then eventually, when they realized they didn't need it, they just left it alone. They didn't even close it.
So these buyers and sellers were super worried that they were gonna have to tear that down because they liked it and they were freaking out, and everyone was freaking out. And I had to tell them, relax. Javi went in, looked at the records, looked at the drawings, saw that they were there. We made a phone call. They were like, no,
We presented the information.
it's
and they were
okay,
like,
it's closed.
It's
And it was
closed.
something so simple, but it caused all the parties a lot of stress. So it's just important that you realize that there's always a solution to every issue in a
Yeah,
transaction.
don't make the issue worse than it is. Just find a solution. You say, no, we'll figure it out. That should be simple enough.
Obviously,
figure it
unless it's a deal breaker that has nothing to do with.
Yeah, but you need to figure it out first if it's a
Yeah,
deal breaker.
exactly.
If you don't know if it's a deal breaker, just say, no, we'll figure it out. And if it is a deal breaker, you make the phone call. Hey, so it's not as simple as I said it was. It's actually more difficult.
So once we balance with the lender and we get a closing package, it's closing day, so your clients will come into our nice office or whoever title company you're using. And we usually try to make it a celebratory thing. I'm sure you guys all bring your gifts for your clients. The signing process is pretty easy. We'll explain all of the closing package to them. If it's a cash deal, it'll be really quick. You could tell your buyers that it's usually about an hour process, give or take, depending how many questions they tend to ask. But that's usually the process. Now, after closing, a lot of times the sellers or the buyers will be like, are we funded? 20 minutes later, there's a process. That package, we need to finalize all the documents. We need to scan everything. We need to send everything to the lender. The lender needs to review that every signature, every date, every notary stamp, everything that they need, every document is perfectly executed. And then they will give us a clear to fund. That process, once we send it to them, could take longer than 30 minutes because they have other deals that they're working on. You know, that's out of our control at that point. So once they tell us it's okay to move forward, then we can disperse funds. Now, dispersing funds is also a process. We have to enter everyone's wire information, you know, the amounts, and it's a very important process because we don't want to send your clients money to the wrong accounts. So it's important.
It's a delicate
So,
process. It's not
yes,
one
it's
that you wanna
we
rush.
have to confirm all these instructions verbally on the phone with the people that we're sending the monies to. We have to send several wires. It's not just one. And from the minute we initiate it, our bank has to process it, send it out. Their bank needs to receive it. So it's all a process that takes time. So if we tell you it's gonna fund today, just tell your client before end of business, it will fund. You know.
Question. When releasing keys, it's really up to ultimately the seller to release and
Correct. So, well,
Not
depends.
necessarily.
So we do not get involved in the transfer of keys. The agents between themselves decide how the keys are gonna be transferred. Now, the seller has the right to hold on the keys until we confirm funding is complete.
that's the extreme.
Not until,
No, that's it.
no, that's normally how it's
That's
done.
Okay, but that's the end of it. That is like, this
Yes.
is how it is. If they wanna
Now-
release it earlier,
Now,
it's
a lot of sellers are like, I'm not giving the keys until the wire hits my account. That is not okay.
That's illegal.
It is illegal. If I give you confirmation that the wire was sent out and it has not hit your account, they still need to release the keys to the buyer because we're confirming that the funds were transferred and we're giving proof of same. So they cannot hold the keys hostage.
Because the banks have different timeline, right? That's the
Correct.
reason why.
And there's been times where the wire might be in limbo or might be held by OFAC.
It might be, or it might be trapped in the Fed in New York or in the Fed in Atlanta.
And that has nothing to do
Verification,
with the buyer any longer. The money has left our account to their account with the instructions that they gave us
Okay.
and that we confirmed. So once it's complete and we have a wire confirmation, the actual document that we send out when you guys ask for a confirmation of wire, the seller must release keys. Now, we as a courtesy will hold keys at closing to transfer over to the buyers if the agent asks us to, but we won't release it until they give us the okay. So that's the process of exchange of keys. Now, after closing, we get all of the original documents and we send it to record. Okay, and that process is how we begin the post-closing process to issue policies to the clients.
What number are we on?
I'm already on 8, so we'll begin the policy prep, which we'll talk more about later. Questions on this process? No? I guess I'm a good teacher. So this is an overview of the primary purpose of the title company, which we've basically gone over. Again, the title insurance protects improperly recorded deeds and mortgages. So if the name is, the property is transferred to the wrong person, if there's claims from other heirs, contractor liens, fraud or forgery, which used to happen a lot before, not so much now, I think, but you know, there's a lot of deeds out there where somebody's house got
Fraud and
sold,
forgery could be even, like
your husband signed and sold your property without your
you knowing,
permission.
or you're selling your parents' house and your parents don't know. There's those kids that will do that, and they'll, yeah, I'm the owner, and the dad and the son might have the same name, or the mom and the daughter might have the same name, and they're trying to sell the house out from under them and pocket the money. So that's where we come in to make sure that you are who you say you are.
Now, something super important, we have to follow exact terms of the contract. That means that if you're giving a credit to your client from your commissions or something, and you don't have an addendum and you don't have a broker letter confirming this, we can't put it on there just because you told us, although it's your money. But everything has to be
It's not-
noted in an addendum,
It's the broker.
everything.
It's the broker's.
What?
Every commission that we get paid is.
Oh,
the
also
broker's money.
guys,
Of course.
sometimes in the MLS, like the realtors will put cause it happened to me. They'll put in the remarks, oh, if you give like a full asking offer, buyer's agent gets a $1,500 credit. I completely forgot about that, okay? But if it's written on the MLS, you're entitled to those extra $1,500 unless you sign off on it, which obviously you're not going to do that. So I spoke to Magda about it. She's like, if it's on the MLS, then I'm adding it.
Yeah,
so- so
that's-
MLS is binding.
That is a part of the contract process. The MLS, the listing agreement, any addendums, any riders to the contract, all of those kind of go into one big document of how the transaction is supposed to be handled.
I did.
Yeah,
She was fighting me on it, but I got it. She can't tell me to give it away. And that was like last minute. She's like, if it's on MLS, then
She was fixing me that last information.
I'll mention a bit on your offer.
No.
You still hold it.
exactly.
Cool.
It
That's
was,
on
it
the
wasn't
MLS.
on the contract, but it was on the MLS. She could have erased it before I noticed it.
Yeah.
She didn't.
okay, so after closing, a few things you can remind your clients about. Obviously, the transfer of keys, which we just spoke about, the transfer of utilities. Now, the only utility that title gets involved with is water and sewer, okay? Everything else as far as power, cable, that has nothing to do with the property. It attaches by social and moves along with the sellers. Now, water does attach to the property. So in order for your buyers to be able to open their own water account, the sellers need to close out their account, pay off any balances to, and show proof of that, okay? We do hold escrow in case the sellers decide never to do that. So if the buyer needs to open their water account and they go ahead and they close the seller's account for them and pay any balances, we have money to be able to compensate at that point.
I have a question regarding that.
Sure.
What about the owner of the house is deceased? And it's in a trust,
Well, the trustee would be responsible.
for that still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the trustee would be the person handling the transaction, signing the closing documents, and then they would be responsible for finalizing any accounts open related to the property. Homestead exemption, very important for you to advise your clients to apply. Last day is April 30, maybe March 1st. March 1st is the last day to apply for the following year, or for the previous year. So it's coming, oh no, it's not. Yeah, very good. I don't even know what month we're in. Obviously change your address with the post office and save all of the closing documents. A lot of times we send the link, it's a secure link to your clients so that they can save it. It expires. So then we get 3 months down the line, I never got my closing documents. Yes, you did, you just didn't save it. So just advise your clients, they will be sending you a link, you need to save it in a safe place, and then they'll get their originals later on.
Yeah, so we send a link unless they say otherwise.
Sometimes they ask for physical
Sometimes they ask
copies.
for physical copies.
We like to
try-
save trees.
Right, we like to save trees, and so that's part of the reason why we try to avoid getting physical copies. So if when you do a closing with us and your client, that remind them, hey, they sent you a link with your closing package. Okay, with everything's in there, make sure you download it. And then if they call you and say, hey, I never got this information, you can tell them, well, for sure, I know they sent it to you. But maybe your link just expired. And we'll get you.
Okay, now the post-closing process, this is so you can tell your clients more or less the timeline of when they're gonna be receiving their policies and their originals. So on closing day, we obviously fund the file, we pay the mortgages, pay the taxes, pay everyone's commissions, send the seller's proceeds. Then the deed and the mortgage are sent to be recorded with the county. Now, this process, depending on the county, can fluctuate. Some counties have recording on the same day. Some, like Miami-Dade County, can take up to 3 weeks to get me the recorded documents back. Only in Dade, right? Upon, yeah,
Yeah.
they're just very short-staffed and busy.
I'm not sure staff.
I mean, well, whatever, you know,
Doesn't wanna work. They don't get fired, that's why.
you're right. Once we get those documents back, we have to send for the policies to be issued, which could take about another week. And then the policies and the original documents are mailed to the buyer and to the lender. That process from the day of closing up until the time that they receive the policy is give or take about a month.
So
Okay,
what happens to people who wanna buy and immediately pull permits and start working on the house? What do they do?
well, they'll have a copy of the executed deed unrecorded. So, you know, they can work with that with their contractors for the most part. I've had scenarios where they haven't accepted it and they need the recorded copy. A deed that's executed and not recorded is still a valid deed. There's a lot of people who prepare deeds and never record them with the county. You know, they keep it quiet, or a quick claim, and they'll keep it for years, and it's a valid document.
So
So-
your clients know that it might take a month for it to show up, but if they needed to do pull permits and start doing work, they can do so with their.
Now, the
Executed
timeline from being recorded with the county and actually showing up on the property appraiser are two different things.
That's another month.
The property appraiser, I've seen 3 months pass and it's still not reflecting, okay? And we have confirmation that it was recorded 2 weeks after closing. At that point, the client just needs to reach out to the property appraiser and have them update the records, but they are so slow, so slow. Specifically Miami, I'm talking about.
Does it happen in Monroe or Broward?
No, Broward is pretty good and everything up north is great. Any questions on that so far? All right, so here are some common hurdles. We've already spoken about some of them. Your client's expectations, make sure you prepare them for success. Funding date and times, we talked about that. Now, reoccupancy certificates. This happens to us frequently. We always remind the listing agents that if a property is in a certain city, it may require a reoccupancy certificate, and that is a seller responsibility. It's a seller responsibility to pay for it and a seller's responsibility to schedule the inspection with the city. Now, this process could take a long time, depending on their scheduling. So it's important that if it's in Miami Gardens, Hialeah, El Portal, Miami Springs,
Miramar.
no, not Miramar.
Some Miramar, yeah.
Sumner?
Reoccupancy certificate.
Maybe DC or not.
Miramar.
No,
Yeah.
Miramar does not require
Yeah,
it.
as far as that.
For me, yeah,
That might have been Miami Gardens.
Miami Gardens, don't use Miramar.
Is it new
Well, whatever,
construction?
just make sure that if you
New
need one, you get
new
one.
constructions need that, but it's
Not a re-occupancy.
it's not a reoccupancy, it's an occupancy certificate. I think I named them all. Sunny Isles, North Miami. So it's important that if you think you're in one of those cities, that you contact the city, and you could call me or your title company, and they have the phone numbers for what department to contact. And it's literally just scheduling an appointment for them to come in. Now, this could be also a make or break on your deal. In Hialeah, every time there's a reoccupancy certificate, it becomes an issue because there's an efficiency that was built improperly. There was, an above ground pool that's not supposed to be there. Tile that was put in without
The roof was
permission.
redone.
So it's important that in those specific cities, you're aware that that could cause a potential delay.
The guy was selling mangoes in his backyard, he got a ticket because you can't operate a business on your personal property.
Yeah, Hialeah Gardens doesn't require.
No,
And
Hialeah
certain,
Gardens.
yes,
and certain
Hialeah
Hialeah properties don't either. So unincorporated date and condos do not fall under this.
How far
group.
before closing do you want to do the?
I would initiate it as soon as you have an appraisal and you know that you want to proceed with closing.
Because this was a seller's responsibility?
It is a seller's responsibility, but you as agents, if you know that you have a property, remind the listing agent, hey, you need to do this, because a lot of agents don't even know what a reoccupancy is, and we'll tell them, you need a reoccupancy, and they'll say, what is that?
You guys see what's
Yeah.
on the end of this.
You guys, you read the
know
broker
the other-
remarks,
usually
cause
the other
sometimes they'll
side
even
is-
put, buyers is responsible for it. Like, they'll say that, like, that's like a term.
And now
That's what it
reoccupancies certificates, a buyer can purchase without getting that done. Okay, they can forego the reoccupancy certificate and they will have to sign a hold harmless at closing, saying that whatever happens in relation to that inspection that wasn't done would become their responsibility. So anything that was done illegally, and if they get any fines later on, it's not covered by title, and it's not something that they could reach back out to the sellers and get fixed with them.
So
You
they,
guys, go ahead.
no,
Do you guys advise putting in our contracts that it's the seller's responsibility?
It already is there.
It already is.
It's in the contract. It is a seller responsibility.
Some
Yes.
listing agents will tell you, oh, no, it's the buyer's
Right.
responsibility, whatever.
you have seen,
Yeah, you guys should read the contract over and over and over, like just read sections of it or a page. Yeah, I'm gonna read this page today, and the next time I read this page, just do
There's
that
so many
commonly so that-
clauses in there that
So that
that
you're on top of the contract.
go overlooked that could be beneficial to either the buyer or the seller.
Yeah, if your client needs to get out of the contract, there's ways for you to get out of the contract. You just have to be creative. They're written in there. You just have to be-
Which property need that be
It's those cities. It's Hialeah, Miami Springs, El Portal, Sunny Isles, North Miami, Miami Gardens. I could give you a full list, but it's really those, there's like 7 or 8 of them in Dade County. It's only Dade County properties.
Yeah, it's only Dade because of the issue with illegal efficiency, illegal structures. That doesn't really happen. That doesn't really happen in the rest of Florida. I mean, it does happen. It does happen, but now with the prevalence, like it does. Only Dade.
And again, the delay of providing documents, be on top of your clients. A lot of people are like, oh, I'll send it tomorrow, and then they forget, or they say, why didn't you ask for this? And we've asked for it 3 times.
Yeah.
Just make sure to have them check their emails. A lot of times our emails, everyone's emails go to spam. Check your spam folders.
Yeah, I think that happens pretty soon.
It's just a constant issue. You agitate yourself and people will call and be like, I haven't gotten what you said, and I sent it to you. No, I don't have it. Did you check your spam?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
Oh,
did you check, or
yeah.
did you check your email at all before making the phone call requesting? We don't care how many times you call us, but sometimes we see that people get themselves upset and it was already there for them, Again, simultaneous closings are a nightmare, and just problem solving. We are here to help you get things to the closing table as fast as possible. We want to get paid, we want to pay you, and we love closing day. So
We all did.
yeah,
Who here has worked a regular job, like a normal 9 to 5?
Except Natalie.
Yeah. All right, so everyone. So there was a common protocol, right, in that job when you're speaking to the people you work with, right? You speak to them clearly. You don't assume things. You just ask questions. It's the same process with the lender and with the title company. Treat them like you work with them in the same office when you speak to them, right? Speak to them, follow up with them, like, hey, is everything okay? Do you need anything from me? They're literally your coworkers. Without them, you can't get the transaction done.
yeah, it's a team effort. Whoever you're using as your lender and whoever you're using as your title, it's a support system. And the same way with us, we really enjoy working with the agents that want to build a team with us, specifically because we learn how each other's teams work, what we need
Yeah,
to
there's-
make the
there's-
transaction smoother. And we always like to hear from you as well, what we do well or what we don't do good, so that we can become better together.
Using a consistent title company, regardless of what it is, and a consistent lender, does a few things for you as an agent. Number one, right, you'll know, all right, you know who the person you're working with is, in the sense that this person either sucks at their job or is good at their job. So let's say you try Angelo out 3 times, and all 3 times you're like, God, this guy fucking sucks. Go find yourself another lender, right? Let's say you use Sun Life 3 times, and you say, God, this fucking title company sucks. Go find yourself another title company, right? But let's say you're like, man, these people are really good, right? And then you're calling the seller's agent and the seller's like, nah, man, your fucking lender sucks. And you're like, sounds suspicious, but okay. Like, I don't know, that sounds highly unlike Angelo, but let me check with him. And then, hey, yo, Angelo, this guy's talking about house of shit and saying all these things, like, what's up with that? And then Angelo will probably clarify it, and then you go back and say, that's not what happened, this is what happened. And you clarify what that first. Same thing with the title company, right? If you know how your title company operates and you know that they're on top of their things, it happened to us recently. It's always gonna happen. If the attorney is always gonna blame the other side.
We
Always.
had a scenario last week where one of our employees contacted the attorney to speak with them. And they said something along the lines of, it's always gonna be your fault on my end anyways. Even if it's not, I'm still gonna say it's your fault. The attorney
Yeah.
literally said it. Marilyn, I don't know if she can hear me. And I see her waving. Let me get out of here. So I'm gonna introduce you guys for the ones who don't know how to do this.
So it's important to know your team because you're gonna come across that on the field. You're gonna come across other people that are gonna say, oh, you know, it's your title company, it's your lender, you know. And that's, you know, you should know deep down inside that's not the case. You say, okay, yeah, sure. Oh, it is? Okay, let me follow up with them. You just, you know, you move on.
Did you exit the Zoom? No. Are you sure?
Yeah, but it's not, when it's there.
Well, here she is. She's there.
Hi, everybody.
This is Marilyn. She's our closer and she is wonderful. From the point that the file is clear to close, she'll take over from Janelle, which should be there too. Is Janelle there?
Janelle? Yes.
Oh,
I'm
she's there.
Can I just chime in on something that you guys spoke about a couple minutes ago?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you look at your as-is contract, the seller is required to assist in getting all of that closed out, but he is not required to pay, cure, or close. So sometimes if you notice, agents will put in the additional comment that it is at seller's expense, the responsibility to pay and close if necessary.
Any permits or liens. So I always tell agents at the additional remarks in the contract, put seller is responsible for closing out any open permits and paying any fees associated with same. There's a longer sentence, more complete, which if you need it, we can send it to you. But it's very important that all your contracts have that. It's super, super good to cover for your buyers. Obviously, if you have a seller and the buyer's side didn't put it, don't add it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the buyer side, yeah. And if you get down the listing, just red line. Sorry, guys, they don't accept that.
Janelle, do you have any comments on things you've experienced that I haven't touched on?
Is that again? I didn't hear you.
Do you have any comments on scenarios that I have omitted from discussing on your processing side?
No, just the main ones that are the most important ones are the permits and the reoccupancy.
Okay, anything you struggle with getting the buyer?
Information with the
Just the
standard information that makes the file move a lot faster, like payoff information if they're representing the sellers.
Yeah.
Having them get into that portal, or I normally when I send an email out sometimes and I don't see them logging into the portal, I send the form in Word format. And I asked them if it's easier for them to fill this out, to please fill that out. And I always copy the agent on there. That's very crucial for us to get back on time.
Now, something I just thought of, once we're ready to close, we send the Alta to all the parties for review.
Yeah.
That means review it, because a lot of times we close and we send out commissions. I already know that Element has a $3.95 processing fee, for example, so we already automatically include that in the closing statement. But sometimes another title company, or sometimes even us, we may omit it because it's not on the contract, or, you know, it slipped us. The point is to review it and make sure that those figures that you already know in your head should be on the closing statement. Any credits that, you know, sometimes we don't get an addendum and we don't add a credit, and the lender doesn't know either. And then at the closing table, oh, I was supposed to get $2,000 for a broken tile. Well, no one told us anything. We cannot put it in there without knowing that it exists. So just be sure that that day before closing, when you get the preliminary also for final review and approval, that you do confirm that everything is accurate.
And on that note, if I can just elaborate a little bit more, the Element is actually usually pretty good with providing us all of the parties' contact information.
Yeah.
But just keep that in mind. Just let us know the other side, your client's contact information, the lender, and if you can throw in maybe even like the MLS, just so we have we can verify the commission that you're supposed to be getting. It just helps to kind of like speed things along. That way we're not chasing after everybody for information. And if it's like, for example, if it's a condo or if it's an HOA, just, you know, put a quick comment just so we know. So it's less digging on our end, and it just helps us to process the file faster.
Yeah, as soon as you guys get something under contract, send like, you know, a little
With-
like welcome email to like everyone, you know, CC the lender, CC the lender's assistant, you know, Magda, Janelle, just put everybody in that email and, you know, do like a list. This is the lender's info, buyer's agent, listing agent,
that's very important.
info.
There's an HOA, this is the HOA's info.
Process, you know, very, you know, important dates in your contract, you know, when is the escrow due? If there's a second escrow, make sure that they do that second escrow deposit. You know, just like a little summary for you guys, so you could go back really quick and look at it. Or, you know, if they need information from the HOA, you know, they have to request the Gestapo, so they can just contact someone directly. Just stuff like that that makes their life easier, even your life easier.
Yeah, just consider it part of your job.
Mhm.
Whatever's gonna make your transaction smoother,
Yeah.
that you can do yourself, consider it part of your job.
Mhm.
Because again, our job is to solve problems, not create them. I don't do that, that's not my job. If you could do it and make it easier on everyone.
And that's
it's
how
your
you
job.
get referrals. That's how you get more business, when they're like, wow, this agent really went the extra mile to make my life easier. Denise is our post closer. Can you hear me? You want to put your camera on? Open your laptop.
Okay, can you see me?
Is there a little cover on your camera?
Oh, yeah, open the cover.
There you go.
Okay. Hey guys.
Our post closer, she, from the point of closing and funding, she takes over, she sends the documents forward with the key policies, she'll send everything out. She also helps with post closing funds, retain and escrow. So if there's a water hold that needs to be released, you can reach out to Denise. If you have a post occupancy agreement and it needs to be released, you could reach out to her. So we have a good team set up and we're all here to help. And
You guys have any questions?
Any
right now?
questions?
Any like something you're going through right now in your deal? You have Magda here to answer your questions. Take advantage.
y'all have my cell number anyways,
Yeah,
but
but just.
Is it hard to find open permits in Miami,
Um,
city of Miami?
in Hialeah, I know like
'Cause I
if you
had
go
it
onto like the
closed
city of Hialeah, you can just go into city of Hialeah, like search the property and it'll show you there if they've pulled permits, if there's any open. You can do like a little research
No, but
yourself.
this closing was in the city of Miami.
Oh, then I don't know if. City
well,
of
the
Miami
lien
has that.
search will come
Yeah.
with everything.
Do you guys, I have a question, like the day of closing, do you guys do like an updated, like? do you
The
get, like,
only,
a-
the only time we do updates on lien search
Mhm.
itself, the lien search, is if it's past 30 days. Now, the right before closing, we do a title update.
Okay.
So in there will be any liens, any new recorded mortgages, any new deeds, because you never know, maybe they sold the property a week ago to somebody else,
Or like
right
it
before
happened-
closing.
Like it happened
Or-
to me, so the county recorded the property instead of Inc. LLC. And that was a huge dilemma, you know, we had to end up hiring an attorney and all of that, but you know, when you guys have like a contract under a corporation, just check yourself really quick. Go on to Sunbiz. Sunbiz is like, you know, so easy to use. Just go on in there, look up the articles of incorporation, make sure that the person that's signing that contract is the owner, you know, at least. Make sure that everything's written correctly, make sure it's, if it's LLC, it's LLC, if it's Inc., it's Inc., it's two completely different things. Just, you know, try to do your due diligence on that as well.
Or like
If it's a
example,
corporation.
when we were working on the contract,
Oh,
the
yeah,
person's name is a nickname that he uses.
yeah, so she's
And
like,
then
oh,
so, like-
send it to Kina Wright,
Right,
and I'm like, but it says Jawalda Wright,
but it's Jawalda Martina, right,
so she
So-
goes under Kina.
yeah, so we figured it out.
And make sure that on your contracts, you use the people's names as they appear on their driver's license. It's
And go
important,
name.
because a lot of times, you know, they'll put Christy Hernandez on the contract, and then it's really
Christopher.
Christina Hernandez, and then we'll have to get an addendum again, because we cannot change the terms of the contract. We need to get an addendum correcting the name of the buyers.
Yeah,
and
if
the
you need
sellers.
to, just when you're writing the contract, hey, real quick, send me a picture of your ID. I need to know your full government name, so I can put that on the contract.
And the name that they're giving the lender needs to match the name as on the contract as well. All the documents need to appear the same, because then there'll be title issues later on when they go to sell. So it's important that they all match. The same thing with the sellers. You use the name as it appears on the last deed on the property appraiser. So do a quick search on the property in the property appraisers and see where the name is listed, and that's who the seller would be in the transaction.
If that deed was wrong, like,
Yes.
you need to,
There'll have to be some kind of correction document at closing. It could be a same name affidavit confirming that the person that's on the deed is the same person,
That
that's
Christie is
signing.
Christopher.
yeah.
you know. But it's important that they all match. So just be on the lookout. Anything else?
Questions?
You guys need to drink champagne.
Yeah.
I just wanna
Um,
confirm on the occupancy agreement. That's a title condition, a commitment?
Yeah, it's on the commitment. Now, it could be forgone.
Waived.
You could
Wait,
forego it.
you could forego it, but it will not be, it'll be an exception on title, and it'll be a hold harmless to the buyer.
Only waived.
So a lot of times in Hialeah, people know that it's gonna come back with a bunch of violations, and they will say, I'm gonna take the property as is, but they also take the risk that because that property is going to show up as recently sold, probably an inspector is gonna go by and start giving fines, because it happens all
Especially
the
now.
time.
Then you know what
Especially
happens, you just let the fines keep accumulating, and then when you sell, you set that problem to the next person. And
Yeah.
it just continues
That's
on.
a terrible advice.
That's usually what happens, literally in Hialeah, that's usually what happens. You
Not
should do that.
necessarily, because certain times they will,
When
they
it's,
will.
when it's written in there, buyer needs to sign a hold harmless, just know that
It's a
the
big
person that
one.
owns it probably bought it with a hold
Yeah.
harmless as well.
Mhm.
Most likely.
or they're not agreeing to fixing it. So,
But typically,
You
the
could- you
seller
could-
will have to cover all of that before.
yeah, so anything that comes up in the reoccupancy certificate as a violation or code enforcement or something that they did wrong on the property, the seller would normally need to correct it
Unless
prior
agreed
to
upon.
closing,
That's agreed upon.
unless agreed upon otherwise. Now, in order to issue the reoccupancy certificate, those errors need to be corrected. So if you do the inspection, there are errors, they have to go back again to the property and review that everything was corrected prior to submitting the actual reoccupancy certificate.
Yeah, in other words, just don't do transactions like those.
Yeah, because I have a guy that's
kinda hard.
obsessed with Hialeah. He owns already 3 rental properties there, and now he wants to buy 2 more, and
Hialeah is great.
There's a bunch of
Yeah, but it's a
properties
pain in
that
the
don't
butt.
require it, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found so many
Tell them to buy
properties.
condos, tell them to buy condos.
Condos and unincorporated Dade, which is still Hialeah.
3015.
Well, these, like your
5216.
typical people in Hialeah,
No,
buys a property
3016.
and then starts building walls and
Well, this
creating
is my
efficiencies
No,
and
it's
apartments.
Right over.
It's considered, it's considered Hialeah because
over
all of,
I-75.
all of the addresses in Miami Lakes, even mine, in my house and in the other office, the post office labels it still as Hialeah.
4-2.
0-15 and 0-14, I think is
No,
Hialeah.
it's 18, 14, and 16.
1.
Those are the three.
Oh, the
And
ones.
charging like 1,800.
No, 15 is not.
I still write Miami Lakes, but,
Yeah,
but
I still
it,
write- I
but
still
it-
write Miami Lakes
but
too,
it
so.
changes it always.
15
to
would be PSN. And 16 ends.
Thank you,
where-
girls.
Where that 170th Street, you know, where Miami Lakes ends, where before it turns PSN.
Yeah.
3016 ends right there. And then it turns into 15. So yes. Buying 15.
1.5.